a lot of the opportunities that I walked away from was kind of the ones that were easier to market, and that those were the tough decisions, because that's when my CFO was kind of saying, well, Jack, you can't be so stubborn, because there's so much opportunity if you just created a non-Gothskulls product, if you just added some polyurethane here. So it was always the push that I always had to push back on, and I've always pushed back on, is compromising in the product just for penetrating the market, because those opportunities have been there. They've been there for 19 years, and I've kept saying no to them. Maybe to the detriment financially of the brand. Maybe we'd be $1 billion company. Who knows? And I think we probably could be, but that's not my journey. That was not my path.
Welcome to How I Made It in Marketing from Marketing Sherpa. We scour pitches from hundreds of creative leaders and uncover specific examples, not just trending ideas or buzzword-laden schmaltz, real-world examples to help you transform yourself as a marketer. Now, here's your host, the Senior Director of Content and Marketing at Marketing Sherpa, Daniel Burstein, to tell you about today's guest.
Marketing is about helping your ideal customer perceive the value your products deliver. But before they can perceive that value, you have to create it. When I received a podcast guest application for my next guest, in my due diligence, I found that its Stratami mattress was considered one of the 9 best mattresses in 2024, according to Consumer Reports lab tests in a June 27th article published by the well-regarded independent product testing nonprofit. That's called creating some value. So to figure out how he created that value, how he built the company, and to share some of the lessons and stories behind it, I've invited on Jack Dell'Accio, CEO and founder of Essentia Organic Mattresses. Thanks for joining us, Jack.
Hey, Daniel, thanks for having me on.
All right, let's take a look
this.
at some of... Me too, Jack. This is going to be fun. Let's take a look at some of Jack's background so you know who I'm talking to before I get into it with him. He grew up in an entrepreneurial family, he said. He worked in marketing and sales for an Italian furniture brand, but he's been at Essentia for 20 years. He founded the company 20 years ago. He originally funded Essentia himself, investing $3 million to develop the products and build a brand, and it is projected to surpass $50 million in revenue this year, 2024. Dell'Accio oversees a company of about 100 employees, but does not manage the marketing team directly himself, but he's deeply involved in marketing from everything I've seen him do. So he's going to teach us a lot today. But first, before we jump into some of these, lessons from your career, Jack, what is your day like as a CEO and founder?
My day is pretty, I guess, obsessive in a sense where I start my day off trying to be just in the moment with the family, but with that doesn't last too long, because everyone's off to school, off to work. So once that 15 minutes is gone, I'm straight to catching up on emails, any communication, and I'm obsessive of being the first to be responding in the day and the last to be responding. So the reason I do this is because when I walk in, I want to be there for the people around me. Whether I'm going to my marketing team, I want to be in the moment. I want to be engaged. I want to be, attentive to what they're doing and not distracted of what I need to do. So part of my routine in the day is that I'm fully caught up before I've even gone to the office. And I'm sure a lot of people probably do this, but for me, that's been key. So that when I walk in at 8:00 in the morning at the office and I start engaging with people, I get to talk about them. I get to talk about their issues, because my key role here is to support everyone else around me. Support goes in that direction, and hopefully I'm inspiring people, helping them with campaigns and strategies, and I touch a little bit on everything. So I duck into the finance team, I duck into the marketing team, I duck into the ops team, and R&D is my specialty. So I wear a lot of hats. The way to do it is to always be never falling behind.
No, I like that. Get that stuff out of the way early, so you can go in and focus on other people. That's nice. So let's talk a little bit about some of the lessons you learned from the things you built. For you, a lot of times there's a lot of CMOs on, we talk about building brands, they build products, they build, campaigns and all these things. And sometimes we have founders on, it's fun because not only are they involved in building the campaigns, but they're involved in building the value, like I talked about. That's the whole point of marketing, just communicating this value. So let's start here. You said innovation driven by personal passion can lead to extraordinary outcomes. So tell us the story behind this.
Well, for me, that's kind of what drives me as well. I know typically in the industry that I'm in right now, a lot of companies start with the marketing. They do the, they check the landscape. They look at what people are searching for, and they create a product, or they buy a product specifically to fit that need. I come at this as a founder and a creator a little bit in a different way. I'm passionate about a need or a problem and solving an issue. And I haven't even evaluated if there's a mass market for it, but I drive down into product first, solutions first. And that's kind of the approach where the passion is there. The passion for a purpose is there. We create a product. And then from there, we then put on our marketing hats and evaluate, is there a need for this outside of that specific niche that we've seen? And a lot of times, how do we bring it to a broader audience? Because sometimes what's essential and necessary for a small group has great value for the larger group as well. But coming from a position of passion and commitment to everything we do, and starting with a product and standing behind it, it makes everything easier for every team. Our marketing team faces the challenge that I've given them, potentially a product that really solves a problem to a specific niche and a category that needs it. But I also give them a wealth of opportunities, because as a company and the people behind it stand passionately behind this product, making it right every time, standing behind the product. So a lot of the sales and service that we put behind in this commitment helps the marketing team moving forward, and knowing with a lot of confidence that we can go out there, we can find the audience for it, get people seeing us, and knowing that we'll follow through as a company behind it, because from the passion and commitment and everything we've done on it.
So take us back to maybe those early days. I'm sure we're going to unpack this journey over time, but I think my understanding was someone close to you got cancer, and you're kind of unpacking, well, what are some of the things that cause cancer? And it seemed like chemicals was one of those things, and chemicals and mattresses. And I got to mention, you're doing this 20 years ago. I know this was talked about back then, but it seems like that was somewhat prescient, because this has only grown more so in the past 20 years. But how back then did you get that sense, like you said, okay, there's a big enough need in the market for a chemical-free mattress that this is something I'm going to take $3 million out of my pocket and put it into? Like, can you take us into your headspace?
So it's interesting. Obviously, I was a young age, not quite as seasoned, back then. So it was an interesting journey. I've always had that entrepreneurial mind. I mean, from when I was in college, and I had a part-time business that I started, and realized, hey, just the tax deductions, what made sense for me to be entrepreneurial, even during school. But I had a different business. I was in the furniture business back then. And when at that time my dad became ill and was battling cancer, and initially we were just learning about the problems that he was experiencing personally. A lot of it with the indoor air quality, which when somebody is fully compromised, they become more sensitive to the air around them, to the products around them. Could irritability with respiratory system, or breaking out into a rash. So there's when your body is sensitized that way, everything's exaggerated. The body overreacts to so many things in its environment. So as we're cleaning up the home environment for him, for his journey, for his battle, and then seeing other people going through treatments, having the same type of environments. So we were there just cleaning and detoxing his space, creating products in his environment that made sense for him and supported his journey. And my mind went into that entrepreneurial spin, saying, well, what can I do? What can I do in my current business that makes me sensitive to this? And I've always been driven to be doing something that's good for people and good for community and good for the environment. And I didn't find that in the product that I was in, the furniture product, and as I was observing some of these things, and specifically at the time, we realized the highest off-gassing that came in a person's home or a person's sleep environment came from the mattress and pillows. And it was because of the high level of toxins and chemicals that were in the mattresses and pillows. So I figured there had to be a better way. So as we were researching product, we were realizing there wasn't a product that addressed all of these issues. So my R&D cap, because I was doing product development, even when I was in furniture, said, well, let me start understanding this. So I started by, hiring some kind of a little basement lab and hired my own chemists and started understanding and breaking it down, how this polyurethane was made, how latex was made. And it wasn't like I said, I'm dropping $3 million and we're going to develop this. It was one of those things where, well, we're going to put $100,000 on it. One became 500, 500 became $1 million. And every time you're getting closer and then you're driven by this mission to do something. And 3.5 years later, it was over $3 million that was invested in this project. And then, by that time, it was like, okay, well, we're bringing this to market, right? So it sneaks up on you. It kind of was through my other business. I was able to invest in this project, which was passionate. At the time, I really thought I was developing this product and then I was going to license it and get a royalty or something like that. So I didn't think I would be founding Essentia as I did. But again, my passion and commitment wanted me to make sure that this made it to market properly. And it was not just marketing spin, but that it was well marketed and kind of backed up by a real product that really benefited people and really hit to the people who cared about it most, which was the consumers. So that's where we ended up being a direct to consumer brand. But that was the journey that got me there. It was that entrepreneurial hat that I always looked to be part of the solution.
Yeah, no, I loved what you said, not just marketing spending, and that's creating the value. But let me put on my skeptical hat for a second, right? People listening and hearing them, and they're like, okay, like I love what you're saying about passion, and we do want a passionate employee and a passionate brand, but they're like, what is the business case, right? There are people that are listening, they're like, oh, that all sounds nice. What is the business case? So I want to ask you specifically, how do you use organic certification to help with your marketing, right? Not just to customers, right? I mean, we see that a lot, stopping a website. I wonder, like, can you use that organic certification to non-customers, to, I don't know, investors, to partners, to when building that business, right? Because, for example, while you're thinking of that, I interviewed Cordula Flugel, marketing director at TNW, and one of her lessons was having a clear purpose will always guide the way. And she talked about in her career working with VCs, how you would think, okay, VCs, all right, they're just, looking at numbers, they're looking at balance sheets, they're looking at P&L, but like, no, they also look at that purpose because they know those are the brands that are going to build. And also, hopefully, they're human beings and want to improve the world in some small way, I hope. I saw for your product, it is certified by both the Global Organic Textile Standard and the Global Organic Latex Standard. I am not familiar with your industry, but from my little research, those are like the gold standards for your industry to show that they are non-toxic and chemical-free and some of this stuff. So again, those are, doing the right thing, doing the passionate thing. But how do you use that organic certification throughout the time you've had the company to win over investors or other non-consumers, vendors, partners, all of these things to make kind of a business case for being organic and chemical free? There's a good business here.
Well, in many ways. So falling under this umbrella and going through the audits of, following the standard, being audited third party, it does a whole lot more. Typically investors, savvy investors, institutional investors, it's sort of like an ISO. You get into a company at ISO, that there's certain standards, certain protocols are done. Same thing with the GOTS and GALs. One is, from end to end, everyone in the company needs to be educated on these processes, make sure that they follow these guidelines. So one, it to an outside investor coming in, if familiar with certifications, they will know that everyone in the company is on board, familiar, because that's part of what you need to be ISO or to be GALs and GOTS. So one, it creates an excellent culture of communication from every department, from production floor to sales to executives. Everyone knows what we believe in, what we're doing, and the standards, and everyone follows it. So it keeps the company running and flowing a whole lot better. On top of that is that's not just within our four walls. The certification expands to all the supply chain that we use. So everyone we use needs to be Galls and GOTS certified as well. So we know there's no there's fair trade wages. There's no child labor. We're not working with Chinese factories that, I don't think there are any that are Galls and GOTS. Just to say, we know that the supply chain has our values, has our standards, and has been audited to make sure that the chain of custody for everything being carried through to us is following all of our standards. So our vendors, we talk the same language. Our communication, our understanding of what our goals are aligned because they're also certified in that way. So operationally, it shows a much better run company as well, through and through. And this adds value if you're talking to institutional investors or partners or anything out that banking, because through evidence of just doing a walkthrough and talking to the people, that there's accountability, that there's documentation and backup, and the flow of the business usually benefits from that.
Oh, that's great. It kind of leads to our next question here. One lesson you mentioned is keep pushing forward. So what you're talking about there with Galls and GOTS certification, but just in general, this does not seem easy. Not to mention, as I said, you started this 20 years ago, where I think the world is kind of moving in this direction, but certainly wasn't there yet. So keep pushing forward. What was one of those biggest things you had to overcome when it came to either building the business or the marketing of the business to get it to where it was today?
Well, there are there's a lot of challenges when you go, especially going back 20 years ago, trying to take a product that was the mindset initially was cancer patients. So that's a really small little subset, and pushing forward was we know that this is great for everyone, and pushing forward on our research, pushing forward on how this resonates to different communities. So as a company, we started off with a very niche customer base, which started with people going through their cancer challenges, and those were the early adopters. From there, we went to people in remission. From there, we went people for prevention. From there, we went people for organic lifestyle. From there, on the R&D side, I kept developing this product, pushing it forward in the technology. So the product we make today, the industry hasn't caught up to us from 20 years ago, but we have far exceeded what we did 20 years ago. By 2012, we started doing case studies and test studies on sleep, and we really moved the needle on what our product was able to offer back, to the point where it hit for pro athletes. So by 2012, we are selling to pro teams across the board, from NFL, NBA, NHL, and we're doing really well because of the results that they're getting. And now our audience just keeps getting larger and larger, and we're pushing forward on the R&D, but we're pushing forward through every obstacle, because I'll tell you, the hardest thing is to sell a premium product in a world and on a platform, I'll say, that is not meant for a premium product. What I mean by that is that as 2007, we decided that the way to bring this to market was online. Mattresses were not being sold online, and everyone thought we were a little nuts, so we were trying to do this online. But if you look at you don't picture this when you're searching for a car. You're not going to find Ferrari advertising with Ford. You're never going to see that. But yet at Essentia, that's what we had to do. We had to find ourselves competing with products and price levels that are not even close to what we do, because most of the products going on online with Google ads and PPC and everything out there is not the Ferraris of the world. They are more in the wheelhouse. So the challenges are great because as we're looking at all the analytics and the marketing team has to pull out and make A/B testing and try it out. How do we get a piece of it, and without overspending? Because if if we can be in front of everybody's eyes, but 99% of them are not going to click, or if they do, we're paying for it, but they're not going to buy. So a lot of the analytics challenges that we face is trying to market a Ferrari on a platform that basically has more economic brands out there. So the challenges were every day, constant. When we've pierced through them, and we have an amazing team that is always looking at the numbers, always looking at every little detail on where to be, how to be there, and how we resonate for people, because we truly believe that the product itself is a fit for everyone, just because quality sleep is essential for everyone. So that's been our challenge. And when you say about, obviously, as a company pushing forward, is because we've tried things and failed as well. And when you try and fail, hopefully you have the wherewithal to fight another day. And we were at the point where we opened up 20 Essentia locations at one point, over the last 10 years. And today we find ourselves that still how we started in 2007, direct to consumer online, still is where we exist and where we thrive and do well. But it was, again, part of what we've done, and you just got to pack it up, whatever hasn't worked, and move on in every sense of the word. There, some of the tough lessons.
So that's really interesting. I want to ask about that. You said you used to have 20 brick and mortar locations. I wonder what you learned from that and why you changed. Because when I look at you right now, I think you've got 3 brick and mortar locations. And when we see kind of what's going on with that direct to consumer, those online stores, they've kind of moved in that direction. It was funny. They had that direct to consumer online thing. And then they said, okay, Warby Parker and some of these others, we're going to start Untuck It. We're going to start opening, physical locations, and where there's not as much differentiation between these channels of the physical store retailers and the online. So I was going to ask you about that, because I saw you had 3 stores. I was like, okay, how's that going? Is that something you're going to grow? And I found out you already grew it and now you shrunk it. So what did you learn from kind of going that B&M route?
So COVID was huge for us as far as understanding the model. When what we were doing, again, because it was such a premium product, the way we were coaching our team is that we push all of our inquiries, all of people interested in learning more about our product, we directed them to our 20 stores. So our online presence was the feeder to our 20 locations, and our 20 locations were doing well and everything was fine. However, when COVID hit and we were shut down for 90 days, all locations were shut. Now we had to regroup, and we told everyone, all right, listen, we are no longer pushing people towards our brick and mortar locations. Now you need to be answering their questions, be available to close, whether it be chats, whether it be emails, phone calls, be available, and always be closing at the end of the day. And so when we changed on that and then made that pivot immediately, over those first 90 days during those shutdowns, revenues were growing up. They were not going down. The right business decision for me right then would have been to shut them all down and just keep going there. Now, it could have been short-lived. Who knows if it would have, maybe that wouldn't have expanded. But the approach we did, we needed people answering calls, answering chats. So I had reached out to all the managers and said, hey, whoever wants to come into work, you're on your own, store is closed, you can go there, you can work, answer chats, answer calls and all that. A lot of them did not come back. At that moment, people were not comfortable taking subways. There was a lot of fear everywhere. 3 months after that, I started the journey of getting out of leases, negotiating out of all those leases. And one by one, by the time COVID was ready to gone and businesses were ready to reopen, I was down to 3 locations. From there, we stuck with it. We're actually down to 2 locations. Because one of those 3 locations happened to be in Florida, and Florida's booming, and the building we were in got torn down to put in another high rise. But ultimately, as leases came up, I didn't renew them. I wasn't chasing to expand. And I do see a lot of people in the space who are, a lot of them are figuring out what's their next step. And they were online direct to consumers, and they're opening up shops. And listen, I've been there. I've done it. That's not the direction of our brand. We see continued growth without having the brick and mortar. And a lot of it has to do with what we've built over the years as far as brand reputation, our brand promise. So it's on one side, I believe our team is really strong in marketing well and finding our customers through different platforms online. But beyond that is we give them support by making sure people can review the product well and having repeat customers. And so all the way through, you need that balance and harmony from all departments in the company doing it right. So yeah, we've and I see others opening, to myself, I wonder, when are they going to realize that they need to close that one down? That hasn't probably going to move the needle for them. But I could be wrong. That was for our business.
Are you keeping these two, or?
They only exist for the people that are there. I kept our Toronto store open. It's a first store we ever opened, and committed to our sales team and manager that's there to say, hey, you guys are here. We'll keep the doors open for you. So that's the reason that one's there. The other one is in Laval at our factory. So we have a factory. So we happen to have a store there. I mean, there is thoughts of opening up one here in Boca Raton, Florida, just because it's in my own backyard. But if the right opportunity comes, I wouldn't be opening it for profit purposes, but more as a window to where I am and being in my community. But I don't feel a need for any brick and mortar stores for our brand.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the premium product, and you also have this lesson here: educating customers about the products they use and the impact on their health is crucial for building trust and driving change. So how did you learn this lesson?
Well, to me, it was working with the athletes a whole lot. There's two different groups of people that I learned a lot from when it came to my product, and then in marketing my product. There's been the cancer patients. They were super hypersensitive to everything in their environment and everything they were touching. I found a similarity in the pro athletes. They were really much in tune with their bodies. So as I was changing some of the formulations and eliminating some stimulants that got out of the way, and we were measuring their sleep, we were able to see that we were moving the needle on REM sleep and deep sleep. So we know we were getting the performance. I was also getting feedback from the athletes. I'm feeling this in my shoulders. I'm feeling this on my lumbar. They were how they're feeling the next day. Happier, better, stress-free. So a lot of that feedback that was coming back from the pro athletes really made me understand the importance of sharing this kind of information. So from that point on, we kept doing case studies with, double-blind test studies with athletes and showing those results and sharing those results. That brought us into the biohacking communities who are trying to move the needle on their wellness, the anti-aging. So this high performance through sleep is not just for athletes. Athletes benefit from it on all their contract renewals, obviously. So they're directly linked to their revenues, but we all are. If I'm not going to be 100% as a CEO, my business will suffer from it. If my team is not 100% in everything they do, something will suffer from it. And whether it be in business or whether it be at home, if you're going to be completely spent and not sleep well, you can't give as much to your family. You can't give as much to your friends, of yourself, of your true happy self. So sharing this kind of data was really interesting. And we just noticed that people want to know. The end user, the consumer really wants to know really the granular details on the product, on how it performs, how it can benefit them. And that's the direction we ended up taking, I guess, as of 2014. So we're 2015, maybe. So it's close to 10 years that we've taken this evidence-based approach on what the product does. And I think number one is it's not an approach that anyone can take, because most people are not selling Ferraris and sleep. But when you are, you get to talk about the construction, you get to talk about how it's made, you get to talk about how it performs, and you get to be very transparent about it because it's so awesome. I can see where in my industry, people are not so much performance driven because a lot of these companies are not manufacturing their product. They're not even designing their product. They go to third party manufacturers and see, well, what can I get? What's the color of my cover? Where's my branding going to be? So they are pure marketing companies that are just taking a product to market. We're a little different. We're so focused on performance and wellness and what this product delivers to the consumer. We get that opportunity to get really into the trenches on everything, on specs and performance and all those metrics that make a difference to a user.
So that's great. And a lot of that is health education, right? And so I want to ask, how do you bring credibility to your health education? Because we definitely see brands take more of a role here. For example, I wrote an article, did a case study a few years ago with DSM's over-the-counter Azo health brand. I got this quote from it. Focus on a key insight that shows how your product provides value and then provide more value that is outside of your product. Consumers expect more from brands, and the brands that understand that win. And I thought that was perfect, very much ties into your brand. That was several years ago. And since that time, we've seen more and more of this kind of online, people become more skeptical of online health brands. Right now, as we're talking, like a few days ago, the Senate was talking about a possible law where there's going to be big fines for influencers and telehealth firms for misleading promotion of drugs online, you know. So in that milieu, right, you're online. This is what you have to communicate all through this noise. So how do you bring credibility to the healthcare education you're doing for your brand?
Well, that's for us. Obviously, we have a bigger challenge because it's all about the truth behind it and the authenticity of it. So we get to work with, we get the privilege of having some influencer. They're not influencers, but they are influential users of our product. And people like Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, people who have become Dr. Mark Hyman. These are people who are our customers, our users of our product, but who have a reputation in understanding wellness, performance, anti-aging, and they've shared our stories. They've shared their experience with our products. Now, whereas the easy way to do this, which is what government is trying to get involved in, is that you can pay influencers, you can pay websites to evaluate your product, but a lot of time they're paid to play, and you'll always get a great result from them because it's really just a commerce exchange, and they're delivering promotional that kind of sounds like education. That's where government's trying to get involved, and these sites need to say that they're being paid for it. They need to try to communicate to consumers, hey, this is not an authentic study. This has been a paid study, because a paid study, you can kind of get the outcome that you want. But for us, it's been through our authentic users. We have over 30% of NHL players sleep on our product. So we're part of the NHL PA on the back end, where the PA has an intrasite where they tell their players that Essentia is the right product. So having these type of authentic, non-paid relationships is what's kind of brought us to the service. Unfortunately for us, there's just not as many as those, right? So we don't get to say, hey, we're on 2,000 sites that say that we're number one. That would be awesome, but we need to be a little bit more paced at where in the reality is true influencers are not as common and not as authentic, and that's the only route for us, because we can't be on the paid to authenticate or paid to influence world.
That's great. And I appreciate you talking about some of those people you collaborate with, because that's what we'll talk about now in the second half of the episode. But first, I should mention that the How I Made It in Marketing podcast is underwritten by MechLabs AI, the parent organization of Marketing Sherpa. You can build a new artificial intelligence strategy or optimize your current AI strategy with an AI quick win intensive from MechLabs. Learn more at intensives.meclabsai.com. That's intensives.meclabsai.com. All right. I appreciate you mentioned some of those people you collaborate with. I see a hockey photo behind your head right there. It looks like perhaps a testimonial from someone. But let's talk about some of those people you collaborated with in your career and learned from. First person you mentioned was Brett Wilson. And you said from working with Brett, you learned to find a strategic partner who understands your vision. So tell us that story about how you learned that from Brett.
Well, Brett was awesome. When early on, and I believe that was in 2009, my marketing guy at the time, I was at my Montreal office. I was still based in Montreal, and I'm always there to support my team. Whatever my team needs, I'm game. So he ducked his head in and he says, "You okay to go on TV?" Yeah. You okay if we write a pitch for the Dragons Den? Dragons Den basically was a show back then in Canada, equivalent to the Shark Tank. And so he asked me if I'd pitch to be on the Shark Tank. I can remember just my work days were so jammed, so packed, and yet, yeah, we'll fit in anything. So at the end of the day, we recorded a 60-second pitch. He sent it in to Dragons Den, I should say, and I went on that show, and I was picked to be on that show. And again, for me, there was no plan, there was no strategy. It's like, hey, we're just here for exposure. And one of the Dragons, again, for our U.S. Listeners, which would be equivalent to a shark, and actually had Kevin O'Reilly, Mr. Wonderful, was on that show. So he first started in the Canadian show.
Did America rip you guys off? Did America rip Canada off with Shark Tank?
well, Canada ripped it off from the UK. So the Dragons then came from the UK and then was televised in Canada. But I think at the top of it all, I think Sony's behind all three of them.
Okay. Well, at least Sony's making money from all of them.
But ultimately, Brett Wilson, huge entrepreneur, really successful in Canada. He was one of the potential investors, and he made an offer to invest. He never became a partner, but when we met after the show to talk about the potential investment, and I was very honest and transparent. I'm on the show to get eyes on our brand. We weren't really looking for financing, but I kind of felt, but Brett, if you want in, we'll find a place for you in, we'll take your money. And Brett said, well, like his goal of being on the show was for philanthropic purposes. He wanted to try to get as many businesses off the ground. He believed in entrepreneurship and he wanted to support whoever needed the support, but then offered right there and then, even if, I'm not a partner, whatever you need, Jack, I'm here for you. And we then, I remember before when I had to open up some locations, I'll pick up the phone, call Brett. Brett would make a few calls. He knew so many people, and we were able to accelerate connections with people, really have people taking us seriously in a world of trying to sign leases in different cities when we were opening up these stores. But I think what I really got out of Brett the most was his spirit of giving. I was on fundraisers with him. I've been to events where he was specifically giving back, and to me that was important. And from immediately from Brett, I came back and said we need to be doing something as a company. Sure, we're giving a great product. We know that we're helping people with their health and wellness through sleep, but there's also more. There has to be a philanthropic arm of the company, and we develop what we call betterhood. And my whole thing is every community that we go in, we need to make it better through our betterhood. And it didn't have to involve sleep. It didn't have to involve anything, but every store manager had to be doing something within their community. So yeah, Brett was definitely the one who inspired me that, no, you don't have to be a big mammoth company to be giving back. You can be giving back a little, even when you're small. And as you grow, you give what you can. And so that was the spirit. And I love that spirit. And I love, and I got to tell you, when I presented to our team of executives, who you think are just focused on building the business and all that. I mean, as soon as I mentioned it, everyone was volunteer. I could do this. I can, everyone was saying I can be a part of the philanthropic mission that we have here. So that was, again, he taught me that some of the leadership of how we're doing good really uplifts everybody in the company, and they're proud to come to work for a company who's giving back. So yeah, from other than the connections that he's made, really observing his giving back and that type of leadership was pretty cool.
So you talk about the team jumping in. I imagine that wasn't just luck. I imagine it's because you built the right team. So I wonder, do you have any specific examples of something you learned to build a team with a complementary skill set and values? Because, for example, when I interviewed Colleen O'Brien, the Chief Communications Officer and Head of Strategy at Armoire on How I Made It Marketing, one of her lessons was find your partner in crime. She talked about, at the time working at Microsoft, this very big company, partnering with a senior data scientist, where they kind of had this trade-off where she traded her business insights for his analysis expertise, right? That's really important in a big company. In a smaller company, it's even more important. And not only do you have to have those right skill sets, I'd imagine you can't just grab an off-the-shelf marketer with the right skill sets. They also need to have values that align with yours, or it's not going to work. Did you have any specific example of how you learned to build that right team?
Well, to me, and I'll tell you some of the lessons learned along the way as well. To me, first of all, work is our life. We're at work all day. So the people you work with, you have to have a connection with them. You have to care for them. You have to want to be with them day in, day out. So every single person that came in, I had to have the vibe that they were good people that I'd enjoy hanging around with, because not just work, we it's our extended family. So number one, there had to be that connection and compassion with everybody that we hired. One of the things, you have to surround yourself with people who complement or take over your weaknesses. And that was probably one of the earlier challenges, because sometimes with that passion and enthusiasm, people tend to just jump on board and don't challenge anything I say, or don't challenge anything I do, because they're enjoying the ride and but then I realized at one point, there's something wrong here. Nobody's kind of like hitting the brakes on something. Everyone's just rah, sounds great, Jack. And that really is not the best formula for what we had to achieve and where we had to go. So ultimately, to me, I'm more of a long-term visionary. Today I'm thinking about what I'm doing over the next 3 to 5 years. I'm not, so really making sure that I had a president that was focused on the day, the activities, because early on I noticed that we would be working on certain things that I had an idea and we'd run with my idea, but we would abandon some of the day-to-day marketing tasks that we're working as well. So that was one of the early on things. I go, what, guys, there's something wrong here. You can't just be running with me and dropping everything to go. So in fact, having people that were, maybe inspired by my long-term, but also able to say, hold on, Jack, I still need this stuff to do here. Great. So I realized that they wouldn't want my updates on a weekly basis, because it was a distraction more than anything else from everything that was working and everything that needed to be done. So really surrounding myself with people who were, focused on the moment, what needed to be done this year for the company, and not necessarily jumping 1-2 years ahead, just having the updates as they needed to go to prepare when it was time for them to prepare, whether it be in the finance team. Again, finance people can easily be come on the ride with marketing, but hey, marketing, we know how to spend money. So that's maybe not where the finance mind needs to go. So somebody hitting the brakes, somebody saying, hey, look at this projections. Are you sure you want to do that? And sometimes, even though it didn't make financial sense, yes, we still want to do it, and we did it, right? But but always having somebody complimenting and hitting the brakes and putting some red flags up was really important. In the operational side, having the right engineers who were just as passionate as I was, but again, really focused on specifically what they were working on and not rushing to the next project that I already have in the back of my mind was really important. And that's where, I've assembled a pretty good team that I'm proud of. They're awesome people, and they're on a mission to do things right and to build a company and to keep building the company. There's a lot of pride from door to door, which is awesome. That's one example, which I was like amazed at this passion. about I guess it's been 3-4 years ago, we did a little bit of a rebranding cleanup, more of a cleanup. So we changed our logo and our fonts and colors, and so photography, something, for all of our merchandise and website and all that. It was not a drastic change, but when it came down time to the logo, I had such pushback from everybody. You're not changing our logo. There was pushback from the marketing team, pushback from engineers, pushback from my finance team. The finance team were the most stubborn. They were invoicing people with the old logo, I think as much as like 6 months ago. I go, guys, you need to update update the paperwork because this logo has changed. So that and basically at the end, the logo barely changed because of that input from everyone. So the font slightly changed, a proportion of the symbol to name slightly changed, but most people don't even realize that it changed. I'm actually looking across the room here and I see 2 boxes, the old logo, the new logo. They are like 90% the same. So again, for everyone to have so much pride in just our logo was pretty awesome.
I love that. There's that famous quote, if we're all thinking alike, no one's really thinking, right? Something like that. So
yeah.
I think it's especially good for your company because when there's a strong mission or value oriented company, it can be harder to get that pushback. It's definitely easier to get into groupthink of like, hey, let's just march towards the mission. What's your problem? So that's essential. Here's another lesson you mentioned: collaborate to bring greater visibility to your brand. You specifically mentioned learning this from Dave Asprey, but you kind of talked to this earlier a bit about, hey, we're not just going to go out and pay some influencers. We're going to, work with the right people. So can you give us some insight into how, like, is this just luck? People just happen to find you, or like how you build these partnerships and do them in a correct way?
So, early on, when we were trying to hit certain people that we thought would be right, and it just it was the right influencers for a product like ours are not for sale. So that makes it really challenging for the new one on board to be able to really stand out. I remember going back the very last season of Oprah, we were selected to be one of her favorite things. And right before jumping on a plane to go to Chicago to be part of that show, the producers called us. Sorry, it's been canceled. They've changed direction, and they've decided for her last show, they're only going to feature her favorite things from the past and not new things. That could have been a game changer for us right there, but you can't buy that. I can't buy Oprah's endorsement, right? Same thing with people like Dave Asprey, Jim Quick. These are people that became users of our product and then shared their story, shared their experience. Ben Greenfield, these are guys that have been buying my products. Dr. Mark Hyman, they've been buying my products for the last 10, 12 years. They've all, and every new place, every time they move and relocate, they get another Essentia. And it's just been that type of relationship. And years in, after using our product, they decide to share their story with their people. They became influencers. And we then have built this relationship where we share their stories on our website and collaborate, and it's become a commercial agreement from there. But again, it was a little bit more not so easy to get them, because the real right influencers are typically not selling that.
So you also mentioned like sports. So you went into sports leagues, and I wonder, I would think there's maybe specific, features that you have to put in your product to kind of go after a market like that, or specific changes you have to make it to a market. So when it comes to a strategic decision like that, that's a long-term investment. Can you take us inside how you make some of that decision? For example, when I interviewed Odessa Landis, the vice president of marketing at Octane, on How I Made It in Marketing, one of her lessons was imperfect action today is better than perfect action tomorrow, right? And she told the story of her time at Capital One, taking on a new role where her team grew 4x overnight. She just became paralyzed to make a decision. She realized, I can't make the perfect decision. I got to make some decision. So something that really interested me before what you mentioned was, okay, you built this multifaceted team where they could pump the brakes, right? She got that You seem, as you mentioned, like, I'm that visionary guy. I'm looking 3 to 5 years out. I don't have a problem with this, not taking action. I can take action. I want to do all these things. This team is pumping the brake. And in the middle of that milieu, you got to place your bets, because I'd imagine once you invest, hey, that's going to be something you're committed to for several years. You're a manufacturer, right? This isn't just a little change you can make on a website.
Mm-hmm.
So can you take us into that decision-making process of how you choose, okay, either we're going to go after the sports market, or we're going to add whatever feature or function to the product, or launch whatever new product?
So that's the one place where no one has been able to pump the brakes on me, is R&D and product development. I'm completely obsessed with it. And I don't stop that technological advance and features. So that's something that I believe it started for me. 3.5 years of developing the product. Then there was I'll call it the commercial break to bring it to market. But then by 2008, I was back on the develop. In 2009, patented new technology, a new core, using our formulas. And that's just the one thing. I've taken very few breaks from that. Over the last 19 years, I can probably say that there were maybe 3 to 4 years where I wasn't pushing forward on product development. But other than that, that's how I'm wired, and I'm obsessed and passionate about it. And so, whether it was going to go to athletes or everyone, I think athletes, I'll give you, that fell on our lap. And that guy there, Jonathan Taves, is one of the first early adopters of our product in the NHL. To give you how this is going to be completely luck, but I was consulting with the Montreal Canadiens. They came, one of their doctors came to me and wanted to understand sleep, understand how they could move the needle for the player. So I happened to be consulting with one of their staff doctors there. And at the end of like 2 weeks, he's like saying, you need to speak to Pat Brisson. Now I go, I know he's a hockey agent. I go, why do I need to speak to Pat for? I've never met him before. He goes, you need to speak to Pat. He's got all the top players in the league are under his agency. All right, well, yeah, one day I'd love to meet him. 2 days later, I'm walking back to my office, and my office was positioned right after the sales team. And I have one of my girls was there, and she says, Jack, I've got someone on the phone, and he's just dropping names, and he's talking like Sidney Crosby and Jonathan Taves. And well, what's his name? And she didn't pronounce it right, but she said basically in her own pronunciation, she said, it's Pat Brisson. I go, I'll take the call. Just transfer him to me. I ended up getting on the phone with Pat and speak to him for 2 hours on that phone call. Has become a personal friend, or a great guy. And from after that conversation, he said, well, where can I try it? And he goes, where are you located? And he happened to be in Marina Del Rey in California. And we had a showroom in Santa Monica. So he goes, that's right down the street from me. He visited the store from there. So the way he found out about us is that Sidney Crosby, plays for the Pittsburgh Penguins, tasked him to find the healthiest mattress for him, who then tasked Andy O'Brien, which was strength and conditioning coach. Andy did the research. He went to see us, found us online, went to see us at our Toronto store, went to see us at our Calgary store, vetted all the white papers that we had, and made sure that, with doctors, that what we were saying was accurate and true. And then he gave his green light to Pat to negotiate purchasing for Sid. But from there, we ended up expanding way forward. So before Sidney Crosby even got an opportunity to purchase, Jonathan Taves was a player that also was under contract with Pat Brisson. He's in Chicago, and he reaches out to me and through Pat and says, you know what, I'd like to try this product, because he's vegan, he likes organic, he wanted a lot of the features that we have. After 2 weeks that he slept on the mattress, he then calls me up and he goes, Jack, is it okay if I bring my team to your store? I go, absolutely. When you want to come? It was 11 a.m. He goes, we could all be there by 1 p.m. So within 2 hours, we shut down the Chicago store. The Blackhawks came in, and everyone's getting measured up for their Essentia mattress and all that. And that was kind of how we started in hockey, and how we started in pro sports, and word of mouth went around from team to team, and Eventually we were part of the PA. We've done some case studies with the, at the time they were the Oakland Raiders, but worked with the team and the strength and conditioning coach there to, really convert some of the players and, some concussion protocols on helping sleep with concussion. So yeah, I've had the technology hat on with Essentia since 2012, really hardcore with pro athletes. And it's been fantastic as they push me to keep the development going and get the results, the REM sleep and deep sleep results to make them better, make them stronger. And I share that information with the Dave Aspreys and the Ben Greenfields and the Dr. Mark Hymans and on our website. And we just have a whole bunch of educational papers on our website for people who want to know. So the education has been key in making this available to everyone. So so the stubbornness to keep doing R&D and pushing forward on the product, luck has come along the way and found us in a sense, which has been part of what we had to build on.
Well, forget the Raiders. You got to get my Jacksonville Jaguars some of these mattresses because they're not doing too well on the field and they need some help. They need some rest. Let me ask this in a different way, because this priority question, and that's why I'm kind of pushing hard here. I mean, this is a key question for marketers to decide where they should invest, what channel they should invest in, or where they should go with the brand, and with business owners of how they're going to invest their company. So maybe you can give us an example of, and there's some details you might not have to leave out, but what is a path you didn't go down and why didn't you go down it, right? Because I agree with you. I love how you want to push the product, the R&D, constantly make it better. But at the end of the day, it is a business. And so I am sure there are some things that you could do where you could go so far where it's like, okay, we can't profitably do this. And as an example, I think we talked about premium, but I want to set the table maybe for the audience and you can correct me. Your mattresses are going for roughly in the $3,000 and up range, roughly. Other mattresses are going for they're all different price points, but 800 or something, right? So there's a significant increase in cost. We talked about GOTS and goals and a lot of things you do for the mattresses. These make a better mattress, but they also increase cost. So I wonder if is there a time where you've had to say, no, hey, there's a certain place we want to go or feature we want to invest in. Here's how we kind of did the research on it. And maybe we're not going to go there yet because that would put us in this place we don't want to be in terms of marketing, to our audience. Does that make sense? Has that ever come up?
Part of the development that I always strive for, I've always been striving in is how do I make an economical version of this? Is there a way? And I have always been passionate to make this available and accessible to everyone as much as possible. I think our starting point is around $2,000, but yeah, it goes up to $11,000 on some, and there's not a vast variety. We only have 6 different models to choose from. So they do jump. But ultimately, a lot of the opportunities that I walked away from was kind of the ones that were easier to market. And that those were the tough decisions, because that's when my CFO was kind of saying, well, Jack, you can't be so stubborn because there's so much opportunity if you just created a non-GOTS product, if you just added some polyurethane here. So it was always the push that I always had to push back on, and I've always pushed back on, is compromising in the product just for penetrating the market, because those opportunities have been there. They've been there for 19 years, and I've kept saying no to them. Maybe to the detriment financially of the brand. Maybe we'd be $1 billion company. Who knows? And I think we probably could be, but that's not my journey. That was not my path. So, and a lot of times, some people along the way have not stayed with the brand because maybe, hey, we moved too slowly for them. That's not where they wanted to go. They want to bring this to $1 billion company, and I've made the decision not to go down that path. So a lot of times making the decision that seems easy and not to go, I think, in my opinion, in my brand promise, it was the right decision. I would have just, Essentia would have been just another generic mattress company. On the other hand, deciding what to dive in on. We've dived in on a lot of things. We have tried different opportunities, different collaborations, and a lot of times they don't move the needle as much as they should, and that's the main problem, the main issue that we have. We don't fall into a luxury brand. Because a luxury brand, hey, we can just be sponsored at a tennis tournament or a golf tournament, and luxury is where those things are showcased. Wherever you see a Rolex sign, hey, we can go there and be luxury. But we're performance. We're not, we're not defined by the color of the fabric of our thing. It's not like about being hand stitched. It's the formula. It's a performance. So we need to be in performance sleep, not in luxury sleep. We're not and we're on a platform online where most people are selling $800-900 mattress, $1,200 mattress. They are stretching, and they have a premium product that they rarely sell that's $2,500. That's our starting point. So we're kind of in this odd place, but our team has been awesome because they find a way to take a limited budget, because obviously we can't be everywhere, and make sure that they are pulling from these different platforms, from these different places, our target customer, somebody who would be interested in performance sleep, better outcomes. So I got to hand it to them as being able to take this restricted budget and do it right online. But we have tried different things, from events to showcases to partnerships. A lot of them have not moved the needle for us. So I've learned over the time is to not get as excited about a potential partnership and be a little more skeptical, and remember the failures, the failed attempts over the years.
Well, I really want to dive into something you said earlier. And I want to ask, how do you build and communicate a value proposition throughout your company so the whole company understands? I mean, you mentioned now you're over 100 people. It's gotten bigger. So the whole company understands what you just said. Because what you just said is so, if we could bottle that up and just give that out, that is what everyone needs to hear and understand. But you said it with the founder's heart, right? You understand that because, and the thing that's so brilliant is we could have gone down this path that other mattress companies did, but that's not us. That's not right for us. And a mistake I see so commonly among brands, among companies, among marketers, is they haven't delineated that unique value proposition. And so when they're going at it, they're a software company. Okay, let's just take the blueprint of these other successful software companies. I mean, look online. Marketers will see these all the time, right? Here's how we did it. Here's how you can do it. Here's what another software company did. Here's what another mattress company did. We'll do that same thing, right? And I think it can get harder as the company grows. You've got more marketers coming on. They see what other companies are doing. They want to do that. They don't feel it in their chest the way you just said it. That's not us. We could do it, but that's not us. So as that company's grown, as it's done, you mentioned you in a basement lab with a few chemists. How have you delineated or clarified that unique value proposition so the company understands it and feels it and marches along with you there?
That's been, almost everyone that's been hired in the company has gone through maybe not an interview, but a conversation before being hired with me. And every stage of the hiring process, there was an interview process, but where not only they were interviewing the candidate, but the person doing the interview was also explaining what we're about, what we're passionate about, what we believe in. And then it would, by the time they sat down with me, I would share my passion, my commitment, what we wanted to do. A lot of the people that we ended up hiring were the people that were moved by our passion and jumped on board to this mission and this journey that we want to take place. So if someone was indifferent about it, they probably didn't get that job. If they weren't moved by how passionate we are, they likely didn't join our team. And as they all become onboarded with this enthusiasm, this passion, this direction, and I communicate. So to me, I still communicate what we're doing on the forefront, even to everyone in production, what we're about. I talk to everyone, every line operator. I take the time to talk about who our customers are. I make them understand why it's important that everything meets the quality standards, who it's for, who's trusting us with this. So we're speaking with all this passion all the way along. And I got to tell you, when I was put to the test and trying to make inferior products and I'd be in the production meeting with some of our guys in production and it says, what are they talking about? Why would you want to do this? This is not us. They don't just build something because I told them to build them. Ultimately, I can tell them you have to do it and you have to do it. But my production guys on the floor push back if they feel it's not based on the promise and the brand that they bought into and that they're passionate. I've got some of the same guys working for me for the full 19 years. So people that, and these days, there's not many people that work for the same company from day one and ongoing, right? So pretty proud of the team. I guess proud of myself that I've been able to share and constantly communicate with everybody what we're about and stay true to that direction and line.
Hey, absolutely. There's a lot of hack marketing tactics we could all do, but like sticking to a value proposition for 19 years, my hat's off to you. Yeah. So we've explored a lot in your 19 years at Essentia, unpacked all different things about what it means to be a founder, what it means to be a brand, what it means to build a brand. If you had to break it down for our marketers listening, what do you think, in your opinion, what are the key qualities of an effective marketer?
Well, to me, is listening, is to be open to everything around you, and that's part of the reason why I show up to work already with my work done, is because I want to be engaging and listening to what people have to say, not just forcing it out one way. So I think a good marketer has to be aware of everyone in his surrounding, listen to all the voices, listen to all the people, and obviously the job of that marketer is to weed out and figure out what is the right path for us. But again, listening is a key thing. I listen when I'm doing R&D. I listen to the engineers. I listen to everyone on the line. I listen to my athletes. I've listened to those cancer patients. I listen to my marketing team on what they're saying. I listen to my sales team on what they're hearing. And you need to be able to absorb all this and then calmly come up with the path forward. So I think a good listening and absorbing, it's all around us, and you just need to be aware of it and allow that to be part of your process.
Well, thanks for sharing your journey with us today, Jack, and letting us listen to you. I learned a lot. Thanks a lot for your time.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. This is a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Thanks to everyone for listening.
Thank you for joining us for How I Made It in Marketing with Daniel Burstein. Now that you've gotten inspiration for transforming yourself as a marketer, get some ideas for your next marketing campaign from Marketing Sherpa's extensive library of free case studies at marketingsherpa.com. That's marketingsherpa.com.